there were witnesses, and all the indicators were that he was murdered by this group of individuals who had infiltrated his world there in this home in Sussex, England, where he was living at that time. A fellow by the name of Thorogood and a few other men. And, what had been happening up until then were numerous drug setups and busts and what have you regarding the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger, Keith Richards, Brian Jones. And there's all the appearances here of a cover-up that had to have involved the authorities. And we've got a link on the PsiOp site tonight, which is to a summary of a great book. You should read the book. And if you follow the link to this summary of the book, it'll give you just enough information here to cause you to want to read further. And the book is The Covert War on Rock by Alex Constantine. It's been out several years. And he talks in here about, there's 14 chapters, and it deals with so many of these high-profile deaths of rock stars in the late 60s, 70s, and on up through 1980, and John Lennon's death, Bob Marley. There have been some famous rappers who have died under mysterious circumstances. But it's when politics and music are combined that the establishment gets worried. The popular music, as a means of sowing political dissent, in the 60s was identified as a major threat to, what they called national security.
And a major opportunity.
Yes. And out of all this concern about what dissent was going to do in the 60s came COINTELPRO from the FBI, and from the CIA, something called Operation Chaos, which can be summed up here in this, just like this. It says, former CIA Richard Ober, director of Operation Chaos. It created the most expansive domestic surveillance and covert ops network in America's history. The intelligence sector's response to the anti-war and civil rights movement ran covert assassinations programs as well. And this is all documented. And we have CIA documents which describe how to kill people and make it not look like murder. How to leave bodies in such circumstances as to simulate accidental death or accidental suicide or whatever. All sorts of ways to fool the coroner, or at least to create a plausible enough scenario that no one is going to want to dig too deeply into it. But at the time, some of these really high-profile rock superstars were very political and they were being surveilled and harassed by the government. And not surprisingly, some of them ended up dead. And what the full story might have been with Brian Jones, why, I don't know. But there are so many others in this book. Cass Elliot of the Mamas and Papas, her death is considered strange. All the more because she had some link to the Manson family. Mm-hmm. And there's some research by Mae Brussel that gets into that. Jimi Hendrix, his death was attributed to a drug overdose at the time, but there have been strong indications for years that he may have been murdered by his manager, who, interestingly, had both CIA and mafia connections. And reading
surely
here,
it's just a coincidence, Mac.
The official cause of death was asphyxiation caused by vomit.
Yeah, barbiturates in wine, supposedly.
Yeah, but there was a investigator, Monica Danneman, who insisted for a long time that he was murdered. At the time of her own death, she had brought media attention to the case in a letter and highly publicized court battle. Her body was found in a fume-filled car near her home in South England. It was called a suicide. She had had a lot of death threats, and people who knew her said she didn't believe in the concept of suicide. Jim Morrison's death is looked at as, a lot of things about Jim Morrison are looked at as strange. Whether or not there might have been a double for Jim Morrison. There is some research that indicates that there were two Jim Morrisons. This research was done by Thomas Little, who basically interviewed William Colby, former CIA director. And it's interesting how often William Colby's name comes up in these cases. William Colby told researcher Thomas Little that the Doors were a mafia operation, and basically he stated that Jim Morrison didn't die, that he just took on another identity after his, what would you call it, project. The Doors project was finished.
The Doors op.
Yes, and that has been an allegation that's been raised in some of these articles, for instance, such as the ones on the internet about the Laurel Canyon crowd.
So much to investigate there, and so much great music there, too. All right, well, we'll be back on the other side of 8 o'clock for the second half of PsiOp Radio. Stay tuned.
It's because I had a hard time. I will
Wake up, folks. We're back for the second hour of PsiOp Radio live via American Freedom Radio and retransmitted on the Revere Radio Network and Anomaly Radio and, of course, archives over at PsiOpRadio.com. I'm Smiles Lewis.
And I'm Mac White. And before the break, I was talking about how in this history of the covert war by our government on Iraq, the name William Colby turns up a lot. He was the individual. At that time, he would have been an ex-CIA director. Colby gave information to this researcher, Thomas Little, that there was something strange about Jim Morrison's death, that perhaps Morrison hadn't died at all. Colby's name turns up again in connection with the death of Phil Oakes, a folk singer, early day associate of Bob Dylan, Joan Baez, and he was an early founder of the Yippie Party. And his lyrics were considered so inflammatory that he was banned from the airwaves, and he certainly got the attention from the government. And he was telling friends before he died that William Colby, who, by the way, had been director of the Phoenix Project in Vietnam, which was the assassination.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He believed that Colby had put out a contract on his life for $100,000. Okay. Colby, or the Colby name, turns up again in connection with Bob Marley's death, which in this case it's Colby's son, Carl Colby, who supposedly attended a concert of Bob Marley's, and after the concert went backstage to meet Bob Marley and gave him a gift of a pair of boots. And the allegation here is that this was a pair of CIA boots.
Cancer-causing CIA boots?
Yes. You get a case of Jack Ruby cancer, basically.
And, of course, Marley supposedly died of an infection caused by foot cancer?
Yes, he
He supposedly like he had a soccer